Good morning to everyone. Welcome to Room Lasagne. Please welcome our guests, which are going to present behavior-driven development. Please welcome David Sell and Russell Sherwood.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for coming down today. So I'm going to be showing you how we do behavior-driven development at BSkyB. And yeah, the main message from today is all about this collaboratively coding correctly. As I say, my name's David Sale, and I've also collaborated with my colleague Russell Sherwood on this, and he'll be joining me a little later for the demonstration that we're going to do. So just looking at what we're going to go through today, I'm going to be introducing my company, it's BSkyB Broadcasting, why our project's so critical to the business, and why we have this sort of real focus on our testing. And then I'm also going to be looking at how testing's evolved over the last couple of years, looking at what we've achieved with our processes, using agile, behavior-driven development, and also like the daily life cycle that we go through on a daily basis. And then it's all about how you can do this as well. So it's the writing of our acceptance tests, the frameworks you can use, and you'll see how it all fits together in the demo. So who are we, what we do, and what's in it for you as well. So as I say, I'm a software developer at BSkyB. It's BSkyB Broadcasting. We're based in London. And yeah, we're the largest media company in the UK. We've got over 10 million customers. And Sky provides TV packages, phone and broadband as well, alongside sort of newer ventures into like mobile apps and IPTV with like Xbox integration as well. And obviously this all comes with its own business challenges that we face on a daily basis. So Sky's in an extremely fierce marketplace. We have lots of competition in the TV market. And we need to react to those challenges in an agile way. Say if a competitor lowers their pricing or goes out with an offer in a certain area, we need to respond to that as quickly as possible. We also need to be effective, and for us that means we simply can't afford any defects in production. So our process and testing methods mean that we meet these challenges and exceed them as well. So just a bit of background on the application that we're producing. It's basically replacing a legacy sales application in the business, and we're completely writing that from scratch, introducing a proprietary sales experience, and it's currently going down really well. It's being used for all the prospect sales into the business, that's new customers, and yeah, we're based on Python 2.7, basically writing a REST API to be used by the wider application. And I'm based in the product and offer management team, so that's basically we're modeling every product that Sky sells, the offers that are around those products. Yeah, as I say, we're providing that REST service to be used by the rest of the application. And why are we so interested in testing? And it's basically these defects. We can't afford that when we're trying to sell Sky. If something goes down, it's obviously going to cost the business like a lot of money. And also, if we price things incorrectly or you know, sell things wrongly, we're going to hit legal issues as well, which we obviously want to avoid. So why do behavior-driven development? It means we do it right the first time, every time. We have real clarity across our team in everything we do. And we're not going back having to change behavior later because we didn't fully understand that problem in the first place. Because the business, testers and coders are combined in our process, we deliver exactly what was asked for. And also the way in which we write our tests means that developers, testers and even business analysts can get involved in writing our testing. And the economy of scale on this testing is huge as well. So once you've written a few steps, which I'll introduce later, you can use them in other tests as well, and you've got ready-made code to be used. Finally, refactoring, which is normally a pain in the life of a developer. With our complete test suite, we can make changes confidently, knowing that we've not broken any previous behavior that we've got in our system. So there's massive incentives for working in this way. So just looking at where testing sort of evolved from, it used to be that testing was just another job of the developer. They needed to just know what to test, work out what could possibly go wrong, and there wasn't any real confidence in the code, just bits of unit tests and manual testing. But we've moved on from that. We started to see the introduction of dedicated quality assurance teams. They would write manual test scripts, but it was covering the code a bit better, but you got sort of poor communication between developers and testers. And we didn't really have automated testing at that point, and people weren't really sure how we would go about it. And then we moved on and saw the introduction of Agile to the business, and this has been hugely successful for Sky. Most of the teams in technology have been put onto it now. And it just brings better organised work, like real focus on the testing to get the quality up, unit testing, mocking, and also bringing in things like continuous integration as well. And then we get to where we are now. And that's test-driven development and behaviour-driven development followed religiously. Everyone involved with the sort of business analysts, the quality assurance and developers, they're all part of this process. And as you'll see, the results have been fairly impressive. So just to introduce a few sort of other methods that are out there in a similar vein. There's Fitness, which is like a Java application. And that runs in its own sort of web server, has sort of like a wiki-style front end to the tests, and then runs code underneath. So it's a similar style to what we're doing, but it's not quite as nice as the BDD tests I'm going to show. And yeah, hopefully you'll see this is possibly better. And then there's Selenium as well, which is a great tool for user interaction testing. It comes with an IDE, which is okay, but it's more for writing tests after the fact, like after you've developed your application. It's not great for sort of behavior-driven development and that test-driven development. So good news is that you can integrate Selenium with our BDD tests. So if you want to do that UI testing, then you've got that as well. And then there's Nose. We actually use Nose as our test runner for the unit tests, and we also extend that to handle the BDD tests, which you'll see in the demo. So what have we achieved with these processes? So as I say, we work in an agile way. We have sprints, which are 2 weeks in length. And when we come to the end of that sprint, we then showcase what we've done to the business. We also have planning games where we estimate the stories, like the individual units of work that go into a sprint. And we also have retrospectives as well, where we're constantly reviewing how we work and can we improve or what we should continue doing. And finally, the last 2 points on Agile, which are the most important for me, is that we can fail fast and also adapt quickly. So, as I say, Sky's a fast-paced moving company, and the changes come in thick and fast. So we need to be able to adapt to those, and Agile allows us to do that. So it means we get away from this style of like this old sort of process, and you don't need to be able to read the individual lines. What I'm basically showing here is this is HP Quality Center, and you can see that there's many bugs in this system. So it's a bug tracker for whatever application you've got. And yeah, on the left-hand side, each of these bugs has been given a severity from 1 to 4. A severity 1 might get dealt with, straight away, but how long have the 3s and 4s been hanging around? Who knows? And we like to do things a little differently. So because we work in 2 weekly sprints, it means that we have this. So this is our Agile board. We have the individual pieces of work here. These are all in progress. And the 2 highlighted things are our only 2 defects that are in this sprint at the moment. And this is typical of our sprint. So this one will be tested. We'll have the code written for it. And the main thing here is that these have never seen production. They've never been out to the customer. And this one has been through that process, and that's it. We're done. So what exactly is behavior-driven development? It's essentially a subset of test-driven development. So it's always writing our acceptance tests up front. And we write only what was required, and we know exactly when we're done. once you've completed those, once you've wrote the code to pass those tests. And it means we have this real focus on the problem. So, as I say, we're bringing all the team together, they're discussing that problem, you get that collaboration across the team, and everyone's on the same page. Also, because our test suite, we can run it in a matter of minutes on our local machines, it means we're getting that quick feedback cycle when we're developing, we know we're not breaking anything, and we've got real confidence in that code. And as you'll see, these tests are really simple to write and start using. So just to introduce the Gherkin syntax, which is what our tests use on the front end. It's not something to be daunted by. It's really simple. It's only eight keywords. And start with the most important ones are given, when, then, and also and. So this basically defines the sort of simple structure of your test. So you say, like, given I have gone on some web page, when I click on something, then I should see some result. And you can see how that can apply to sort of any application. You've also got and as well, and that's just for sort of keeping the English language going like nicely in that test. So you can say, like, then I should see some result and another result, and it just basically reproduces the then keyword, and you can use that on them all. And then also we have feature, background, scenario, and also scenario outline. And these define the structure of the entire file. So whereas the previous ones were for the individual tests, this is the whole feature file itself. So with feature, that's just describing what the aspects of the application it's going to cover. Background is like setup tasks, like things you need to have before each test, and they'll be executed before each scenario. And then you have scenario and scenario outline as well, which is where you're defining that test, and I'll explain the slight difference for those in the demo. So it means we get away from this sort of situation as well. So between our developers and testers, you know, it's not a battle. We don't want them just passing code over the wall between each other. We've seen that it's much more beneficial to bring these two people together, and they think about the problems in different ways, different angles, and yeah, it means that we get that real collaboration there. And as I say, we can bring in our business analysts as well. Because it's written in plain English, they can get involved on parts of that as well. So just looking at the process that we go through on a daily basis. So we basically get a story card, which comes from our planning game. That's the individual piece of work. And when the developer's ready, they'll pick up that story card. And then we go into what we call the defuzz phase. So this is basically where we're getting everyone on the same page. We just sit down for like 15-20 minutes. The business analyst will explain exactly what this problem is, what the business requires. And that's where everyone can sort of share their ideas and opinions on it. And then once everyone's happy, we move on to actually writing the behavior-driven development test. And that can be done by the QA, the developer themselves, and as I say, even the business analyst can write parts of it as well. And once those are written, we can then move on to actually writing the code. Obviously, we'll write our unit tests up front, following TDD. And then once the developer's happy that they've got the test passing, we'll then go and have a review again with the QA. We may get an inner loop if they feel something's wrong, and we'll go back round, write some more tests, until everyone's completely satisfied that we've completed that story, and we can move on and pick up another card. So we use continuous integration, as I mentioned before, and for that we use Hudson, which is pretty much standard across Sky. Most teams use Hudson or Jenkins. And a few are also using TeamCity as well, which is a good JetBrains product as well. And on Hudson, it's basically running our entire test suite. It's running the unit tests, the BDD tests. It's also starting, stopping our server, and running smoke tests as well. So not only is our application being checked at the granular level, it's also being checked like completely end to end. What this means is we've got real confidence when we need to go live to production, which we can do at any point. Also, we have the whole team aware of the build status, so everyone knows what's going on. And finally, it also produces our build artifacts, so we're ready to go to deployment using the Jira management system, and that's just a one-button process, and we can deploy to production. So it's pretty cool processes for us. So how do you actually write these tests? So I've mentioned this sort of English feature file a few times, and as you can see, this is fairly straightforward. It's just written in plain English. It tells you exactly what this test is doing. It's really precise, and you can see those clearly defined blocks. We have our feature, which is just documentation for the test, explaining what it's going to cover, and there's the background block, which is where we're doing our setup. And then we drop into the actual test itself. So here we're doing checking the pricing is returned for products. That's just the doc string for that test, explaining what it's going to do. And then we have that Gherkin syntax to actually do the test there. And yeah, the main advantage here is you're clearly seeing what this test is doing in a matter of seconds, rather than having to trawl through code to see what's going on. So that's a big advantage there. So the key points from that is that it's understood by all the stakeholders. Everyone can read that. It's simple, plain English, or possibly even your native language of choice. You can write these in Italian or German. They're also really precise and logical, so they're describing exactly what's going on. Obviously, the feature file is not enough. Like, it's not going to do anything on its own. So we have the steps file underneath, and that's where the sort of real magic happens. So each line in that feature file is picked up by a regular expression, and then it executes Python methods underneath that. And it's a really simple format and allows us to use just simple Python that we're all pretty happy with. So here's the example of a steps file. You can see that it's just matching the Gherkin syntax with the decorator at the start, and then you just match with a simple regular expression on the entire string, so it's nothing too complicated. And we can also do nice things like passing in variables. So that's how we get that real economy of scale. You can reuse that step for many different tests. And the other thing to note here is the tables that you can pass in, so you can sort of iterate over large data and keep things nice and tidy. So yeah, it's regular expressions that pick up each line in the feature file. We can do that row iteration, simple things like that. And just because it's just a normal Python file, so you can write helper methods and functions within that, keeping your steps like clean and tidy, and you know exactly what they're doing. So just to look at the sort of frameworks and tools that are out there. So the most well-known throughout the wider software community is Cucumber. It's really good. It defined that Gherkin syntax that they all use. And the only problem for us is that it's written in Ruby. We'd like to keep everything in Python if we can. So we have a few options available to us in Python. We have Lettuce, Freshen, and also Behave. Lettuce is almost a direct port of Cucumber into Python. It uses very similar syntax. And it also comes with its own standalone test runner as well, so you're not tied to any existing ones. And then we have Freshen, which is what we use within our team, and that's actually a plug-in to the nose test runner. So you are actually tied to using nose tests, which may be an issue for some people. And yeah, again, it's based on that Cucumber syntax. And then there's Behave, which seems to be gathering a bit of momentum in the Python community. And that's essentially a almost identical port of Cucumber. And it's very simple to pick up. And the key thing here is that they're all pretty much the same. So once you've mastered one, you can use any of the others. Perhaps we need to decide on a standard for Python, like Cucumber is for Ruby, but that's a discussion for another time. So yeah, as I say, we use Freshen in our team. We also use virtual M's just to keep each project nice and tidy, keeping the dependencies within each project. And it's just a simple pip install command for Freshen. And then to run it, you just run the nose test runner, pass in the Freshen plugin, and point it at your feature files or a directory of feature files if you want to run. So now I'd like to bring on Russell Sherwood, and we'll attempt to give you a demo of this. Nice. So just bear with us a second while we just swap the display over. So what we're going to do here is just start with a blank feature file, and then we've got our steps file on the right, and we've actually just pre-written a few of the steps just to speed things up a bit because we've not got much time. So to start with, we just start writing the feature file and just point at just part of the step definitions that we're using. Give it the file name of the steps there. And moving on from that, we just do our feature block, which is just describing what this file is going to cover. The EuroPython example, and it just follows this simple format. Like, as a presenter, I wish to show the abilities of BDD testing to all the conference attendees. Then we can move into our background block where we do this sort of setup. And for our example, we're just going to do, given I've welcomed the audience. See, we've got the step for that on the right-hand side. And yeah, it just matches on that string, then drops into our Python method and just prints hello EuroPython. Then we can write our actual scenario now. So again, that first line is just explaining what this scenario is doing. I'm just going to replicate a simple sort of shopping cart thing, something we do within Sky. And then we drop into that gherkin syntax, and it's given I have chosen the following products. And we're just going to use that table to list the different products now. Got products and pricing. And we're going to go with the Monty Python theme, as many people. Got the dead parrot at 50, 20, and also African swallow, of course. That's at 10. Again, you can see we've already written the step for that, so it just drops in. And the interesting thing to note here is this SCC. So this is the scenario context container. And what that basically allows us to do is make this variable available to all the rest of the steps. So we're going to need access to that table later on. So that's why we're using SCC there. Then we move on from that. And we start doing our when step. When I calculate the total price. And yeah, if we were to run this now, we'll actually be told, we'll get the undefined message because we've not wrote the step for that yet. So just happens here. Use the nose test runner, pass in that plugin, point it at the feature file. See that you're told undefined, and if we just add a few sort of flags to that as well, we'll get a better output. So -v for verbose, and also no capture as well, which just allows the print statement to come out. See, now we've added those formatting options, we're actually told which line is undefined, and we can go away and write that now. Sorry. So we just follow that same format using the Python decorator at the start. Match on our string. Then we're just going to do a simple method here just to calculate what the total price should be. use that row iteration to get the pricing information out of it. Again, that's where we're accessing that SCC table, so it's available to us in this step now. We're just converting the total into float as well, just to keep it the same for comparison. And we're going to need access to that total price again in our next step, so we're chucking that. And just to finish off our test, we write the then step. So then I should have a monthly bill and then this is where we're going to use that the sort of variable passing in there. So anything in quotes will be passed into our Python method. Write the step for that now. You'll see that the only interesting thing for this one now is that we're doing the regular expression on the whole string, but then we're just going to do a simple little regex there just to pick up what's in that quote. Then we can pass that into the method as expected price. Then it's just a simple assert equals on the two prices. So hopefully when we run this now, we should have a passing test. Go. It's printed out our message as the background and told us everything's okay. And just to check that nothing strange is going on here, if we change that to 70, you'll see how it fails in a nice way and points you in the direction of what went wrong. So we just get the normal stack trace, the assertion error, the fact that 70 is not equal to 80, and you can go and fix that now. We've also done a slightly more advanced version that I'll very quickly show you, just to explain that difference between scenario and scenario outline. We won't run this now. So what we've got is basically the small change to scenario to outline, and what it means is that you can just pass in this examples table at the bottom, and it means that you can write basically 3, 4, 5 tests in one. So we don't need to write a scenario for each one here. So not only are we testing the total price, we're also testing the maximum and minimum as well. So I'm just going to move on because we're running out of time, but that's the difference there. Cheers, Russell. So just to wrap up, the sort of key points that we've gone through today, the feature file can essentially be written by the business, the English language side of it, and it's getting that real clarity across the whole team. Your steps are then written by testers and developers, so they're focusing on the code that they want to be involved with. And yeah, we deliver exactly what was required, what was asked for the first time. And we know precisely when we're finished once these tests are passing. And yeah, like I say, the real key method is we do it right the first time every time. We're not going back changing stuff later on. So just in summary, I've gone through who we are at BSkyB, what we're all about, and why you should be interested in what we're doing. I've shown what you can achieve with these processes, and the real thing to take away is that low defect count and the real clarity across the whole team. And then I've also introduced how you actually write these tests and shown that they are fairly simple to do. So thanks for coming along to my first ever conference talk and also my first ever EuroPython. I really enjoyed the experience and I hope you found some of this stuff interesting. And we've got 5 minutes for any questions. Woo!
That was really great. Now we have more or less 10 minutes for Q&A. Okay. If someone has any questions? Okay.
So you've mentioned, I think, that you can write it in your own language. But even the keywords, so given, etc., that you can...
Yes, that's something that I'm not entirely sure on. I would imagine that some people have changed the package themselves to be in another language. You could certainly, at the moment, use given, when, then, and write the other bit in another language, but it's just a case of someone writing your language version of it.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question regarding actually the structure of the feature file that you presented. And correct me if I'm wrong, when you have this section called background, are you setting up the preconditions for all features in this one file, for all tests?
Yes, that would be executed before every single scenario. So you could imagine you could have 3, 4 of these scenarios. Background would be executed before each one.
So it's something like the setup method in the unit test, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How do you reuse steps? Because it's like you've got when I call the get catalog service there.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, you could reuse that step if the next person used exactly the same sentence.
Yep.
But if they have one word different, the regular expression won't match.
Correct, yes.
So how do you manage to organise your team so that you can reuse steps?
Well, we have basically 3 services in our team. So we have a catalog, an evaluate, and a translate. You don't really need to know what they're doing. But if you imagine we've got those 3 services, so every time we're testing those, we just call the exact same one. So every time we want to test catalog, we use that one. And yeah, because we've got that, collaboration across the team, it's just a case of everyone explaining, this is what we've got now, let's use it.
Okay.
Can we actually set up preconditions for, apart from the background, for each particular scenario? So we have, for example, the background as a global variables in entire suite.
Right.
And then we have, for example, particular preconditions for each scenario.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Can we do this?
I'm not sure. I've not done that myself. I couldn't answer, to be honest.
Okay, I'm asking because, for example, I use lettuce, so instead of background, we are setting up preconditions in the actually given in each scenario.
Yeah, I'm sure they are available in some of the other frameworks. I don't know with Fresh.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
I just wanted to say that lettuce is internationalized and into a number of languages, so I think that includes, well, actually the keywords aren't significant in lettuce. My question is, we've not had very good business engagement with writing BDD tests, and whenever that has been done, they've tended to write language which isn't really testable. I wondered if you could share some insight in how to get good BDD tests coming into the process.
Yeah, I think it's just having the personnel who really understand what the business wants. So we have business analysts within our team who liaise with the business. If they know exactly what's going on and they have a sort of minor technical background, they understand the testing side as well, then they can articulate those ideas, what the business wants, and you can see here, we know exactly what to develop from that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's just a case of knowing exactly what you want and describing it in this way, really. To answer your question, I know. Yeah. Oh.
Actually, as I was facing exactly the same situations that we were getting, for example, the business descriptions from the business analyst, and it was completely impossible because it was like a poem sometimes. So we actually we started writing together with developers, because I work as a QA engineer, the business scenario together with business people. So we, for example, business analyst created the user story, and then we sat together for 10, 15 minutes, and actually we presented our version, and we just get agreement.
Yeah, I think you've sort of pointed me in the right way there. So yeah, we have our dedicated testing team, so they're actually writing these tests as well, and they have a real technical background. They can write Python as well, so they're not just sort of focused on tests, they can do the code. So I think it's getting people involved who know what's going to happen underneath, and that'll get your test better. So, yes, exactly. Yeah, we do pair programming, so yeah. So. Yes, yeah. That's why we have that defuzz process as well that I mentioned. So it's like everyone collaborating, sharing ideas.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh yeah, sorry.
As far as I understand, this applies mostly to acceptance testing, but are you still using like old good TDD, and are you using Freshen or standard TDD tools for that?
Yeah, we do unit testing as well. Before every code writing, we don't write any code without unit tests, but we also write our acceptance tests up front as well. And yeah, we're just using Freshen for that. Was that your question?
What if you don't do it right the first time? What if the scenario is flawed?
Well, yeah.
How do you approach that case?
That is a possibility. I mean, like I say, if something does arise that's gone slightly wrong, like the bugs that were in our system, you know, because we work in 2 weekly sprints, we can handle that. So if they do come up, we just put it into the sprint that's coming up and we deal with it straight away. We're not having to wait months or weeks later. We deal with it straight away.
Okay.
In BDD world, we have a description of so-called the living documentation. And actually, I was wondering if you use these descriptions, these features, as actually documentation.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so you, for example, don't copy this to Confluence just to keep, for example, documentation for other people.
Yes,
because we struggle actually with this. So I want to, in my company, get rid of the duplication of certain documents.
We do actually have Jira, the Jira map. The business analyst will write sort of a version of that. So the feature description there might not be exactly the same as what's in Jira, but that's what we use. That's what works well for them because it manages what we're working on. But we also have that as well. So we have both.
Does anyone have any questions? If not, I might want to answer a question. Okay, so everything is really, really interesting, and it's incredibly fascinating the fact that we can actually convert code into something which is readable also to our stakeholders or people which have nothing, have no knowledge at all to Python. But my question is, how much is this time consuming? First thing, and second thing, I do agile development, but one of the biggest problems I personally have is the fact that I spend at least 30–40% of my actual time writing tests. I know it's very, very important. That's why I continue doing it. If not, I wouldn't have done it. But I'm just trying to understand if time could be used in a better way, or at least the fact that we can write, for example, this table example, right? If you use normal libraries like unit tests or something similar, like PyTest, it would be 2 lines of code. Instead, it's 10 lines of text and 3 or 4 lines of spec code.
Yeah, I mean, you saw in the demo how quickly we wrote that test. It's really simple to do. So I wouldn't say it's time consuming, and what it is doing is really clarifying what we want to do. So it's definitely worth doing. It's not like a waste of time, and we do write lots of code as well. It's not all about the test. It is just that clarification, really.
Okay, and another question I have is, how do you actually, also working in an agile world, we all know that code evolves a lot, and you can't really predict exactly how much time you will finish. How do you know, for example, how can you predict if something
well, you're kind of getting away from that prediction. So we know what we want to deliver. They have a basic idea of the roadmap for the application, but we deliver incrementally. So
okay.
it's just piece by piece. That's all.
All right. Thank you very much.